John Barleycorn must die. And that's a beautiful thing. Let's talk about why, and what it could mean for your witchcraft practice. And as a wee little bonus, at the end of today's video, I'm going to share with you some ways that you might weave in Little Sir John into your witchcraft, into your seasonal celebrations and whatnot, as I have seen done in traditional and folkloric witchcraft lines like the ones that I have been involved in.
Threw clods upon his head. Then these three men were satisfied. John Barleycorn was dead.
Laurelei Black here from Blade and Broom. This is basically like your witchy aunt's secret garden cottage where we gab about witchcraft, especially traditional witchcraft. If you're new here, click subscribe and ding that bell so that you get notifications. And if you're returning, welcome back. We do have a Patreon for this channel, and the links for that, as well as my link tree, which will let you know about all of the projects and witchiness that I'm getting up to, which is pretty extensive, are in the description box below, along with the resources mentioned in this video. So let's go ahead and put something in our teacups and get into this. So thirsty. All right, so a little bit of background about John Barleycorn. John Barleycorn is a personification of the grain, specifically of barley. Hi, my name's Laurelei, and sometimes I state the obvious. So John Barleycorn Must Die is an English folk song that's been around since probably about the 16th century in one version or another. Most of the contemporary versions, and there are just a lot of them, are based on Robert Burns's version of the ballad. A scholar named Kathleen Herbert, who wrote the book Looking for the Lost Gods of England, makes the connection between John Barleycorn and the Anglo-Saxon deity Beowa, or Beo, or Bedwig, all the same god, but just called regionally and by time difference is a slightly different name. And that god was connected to an older Scandinavian cousin named Begvir, whose name just means grain, and who was a servant of the agricultural god Freyr. So Beowa's name is actually just means barley, and his story, Beowa's story, actually runs pretty parallel to our story of Sir John Barleycorn. Being a god of the grain, you know how this story goes. That whole birth, life, and then harvest, death, and then rebirth thing. If you're not familiar with the uses of barley, though, or the very, very old folk song, John Barleycorn Must Die, you might not know the twists and turns that John Barleycorn is in for. So the song might be a little shocking for you. So let's talk about Sir John's story. At the beginning of the ballad, three men, sometimes three kings, sometimes three men who come out of the West, make a vow that John Barleycorn has to die. There's a little bit of mystery around why they make that vow. But they basically dig a trench or plow up an area and bury him, or plant him. Satisfied that he is dead, they leave him. Some decent time passes, some rain falls, and little John pops up his head. He's just little, though, so they leave him alone until midsummer. What harm can the wee sprout do? But then, as summer passes, John grows into his manhood and he gets a beard. Barley gets kind of shaggy, right? And it's time to give him the what for. So they hire dudes with scythes to cut him off at the knees. And then they hire more dudes with pitchforks to poke him. And then the miller ties him up on a cart and they wheel him around and around the field until they finally take him to a barn where some fellers with sticks beat him until his skin comes apart from his bones, and then the miller grinds him between the stones. So the whole song is obviously pretty lively and gruesome sounding, but it is very clearly an anthropomorphized version of the cultivating of barley. And it would seem to end here. You would think that it would just end at that point, except that the ballad goes on to say that John is now the strongest man at last, because he's in the bowl, he's in the glass, and that he proves stronger than the miller or than the men who beat him or than the huntsman or the tinker, because they can't do their work without a little barleycorn. Me either today. Everyone needs a little barleycorn. So let's talk about some implications for witchcraft with this song. Not every traditional witch actually celebrates seasonal Sabbats in the same way that neo-pagans and other types of witches do. So that comes as a surprise to many people as they explore different branches of the craft. But the truth is that a lot of TradCraft is about enlightenment and self-discovery of the divine within. But what's cool about John Barleycorn is that with this ballad, with this cycle, the folkloric witch sees an intersection of the mythos of the dying and resurrecting agricultural god cycles of paganism and the alchemical quest for gnosis and transformation of the Luciferian ethos. So you'll note that even though barley is routinely made into bread, which sustains the body, this ballad isn't about that. It focuses on the grain's transformation into ale and brandy or whiskey. So these spirits, these alcoholic spirits, are often considered gifts from the gods and are given in return to the gods as offerings. And they're considered entheogens in their own right. An entheogen means a way to bring the divine into the self in order to better understand the divine. They unlock our divinity, or they're an insight into our divinity, or at least they can be, because they can also unlock our madness and bring us really low rather than lifting us up. And this is all super, super connected to the Dionysian mysteries, the twice-born gods of the vine and grain, whose crops have a second harvest when timed right. So you cut them down once and you get the harvest, and then you can cut them down again before the year is over, before the harvest cycle has ended. So they live twice. And then they also have another cycle of living twice, because you can eat the fruit, but then when the fruit goes bad, you can drink that fruit or drink that grain again in a different way because it has fermented. And so we get sustenance from the original fruit in our daily lives, but then we also get something elevated from it, something divine from it when it transforms, and it helps to transform us and transform our daily living. But again, it can bring us low. And you know what I'm talking about, probably. You've either seen it or you've experienced it. So it was probably honestly a wicked hangover that had those three fellas at the beginning plotting murder upon John Barleycorn in the first place. You'll never do that to me again. But, of course, if you bury a seed, all you're doing is planting it. Because cycles. A final thought on the mysteries of Sir John. In his two forms of grain and drink, we have both the body and blood of the red meal. Bread and ale. Yep. Good stuff with him. Lots to chew on. So it's worth noting that this piece of folklore has lots and lots of pop culture versions. This particular ballad is one of the most popular English folk songs around. So many groups and individuals have covered it that it's hard to list them all. Some that you may know or have heard of and can definitely find are Steve Winwood's band Traffic, Jethro Tull, and Joe Walsh from the Eagles are just a few of the more well-known to those of us of a certain age. So after an odyssey of searching through really old sound files on my backup devices for my computer, I was able to find my very favorite version, recorded version of John Barleycorn Must Die. The track is actually just called John Barleycorn, and it was recorded by the group Windwood. It is not to be confused with Steve Winwood of Traffic, who recorded probably the most well-known contemporary-ish version of John Barleycorn Must Die. And it's like this very upbeat version, like, let's go kill John Barleycorn, and it's like it's a party, which kind of is. So at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that I would share a simple way to incorporate John Barleycorn into your actual witchcraft practice, if that was something that you were interested in. So I offer this libation blessing as an example that you can either use wholesale or adapt to your practice. You can use this with any barley-based libation.
They hired men with scythes so sharp to cut him off at the knee. They rolled him and tied him around the waist.
In Sir John's name I fill my cup, to drink my joy and fill me up. Courage and hope and insight abound, as this bowl is shared around.
They rolled him around and around the field till they came upon a barn. And these three men.
So that's all I have to say about that for today, but I hope that you found that informational and inspirational. And if you did, please bless me with the magic of the like button and tell your witchy friends that good stuff is happening at Blade and Broom. I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions in the comments below, as always. And if you would like to add information like this with classically styled woodcut inspired graphics and texturally rich printable pages to your book of art, I have a free 13-page mini grimoire available for you in the links below. And there are even more in my Etsy shop, which is also available through my link tree, including a full copy of the ballad John Barleycorn Must Die. I will see you back here next Monday with more witchy goodness. Bye, friends.